And it's the season where it's out with the old and in with the new, and I'm talking about more alive porch plants, or at least it's just me that bought their mums over the weekend and showed the ferns to maybe their forever resting place. But joining us is one of my favorite horticulturists, Gary Bachman, to tell us how to keep these suckers alive this season. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Rebecca, and listen, fall mums are really easy to take care of.
You say that.
I do say that, yes.
And that's why I got you on here to give us your tips and tricks because, but I will say this, Gary, I had two beautiful ferns in front of my front porch, like so many, and I really tried hard to keep them both alive through, what felt like hell's armpit over the last couple of months. And one made it and one didn't. So I'm not really sure why the one gave up on life, but, such is life, right?
Yeah, well, listen. You're batting 50-50, you're way ahead of the game than a lot of other gardeners this summer because you're right, it was tough.
It was tough, but I always get excited when I go to my local nurseries and see that they've got their mums out. And it's usually at the beginning of September. And whether it feels like fall or not, I am just going to summon the cooler weather by changing out my front porch decor, which always includes at least a pair of mums. So if we are sort of making that transition right now, Gary, and it is still hot, how do we take the best care of them possible?
Okay, so here it's really easy, Rebecca. The biggest thing is not to let those mums dry out because the growers have grown those, so they're going to be blooming. So the flower buds are already there. If you let a mum dry out, what'll happen is it will stop the flowering right then and there, and it will not come back. So the biggest thing is consistent watering of those mums to make sure that they will stay flowering for you.
So what does consistent mean, Gary? Is it every day? Is it once a week? How are we talking about that?
Okay, so you're going to take the mums and not put them in the ground. You're going to grow them in that pot that the grower got from the nursery, and it's probably, I'm going to say, every couple days, watering that pot until water comes out the bottom. And that way the pot will be consistently moist. If it stays hot like it's likely to, maybe you have to water every day.
So you just have to be mindful. Yeah.
You have to be mindful. You have to watch the plant. And don't wait for that mum to start kind of drooping, that said, it's a little dry, I need to water. If that happens, it's too late. It's going to stop flowering.
So that's probably where I've gone wrong in the past, Gary, because I've always been told your plants will let you know when they need watering, which is a terrible way to sort of look at it. But I tend to overwater. So I feel like maybe in my mums in past years, maybe that's what I did wrong. I waited too long for them to, but like people, when you feel thirsty, you've already started to get dehydrated. So we always tell people don't wait till you feel thirsty to drink water. Stay hydrated, during those hot months. So mums are sort of more like people than we think.
Absolutely. And it's kind of the difference between a plant that's flowering versus a plant that's green foliage. Green foliage plants, we can kind of let them get a little dry, and it's okay. But when plants are in flower, if they don't have that consistent watering, then they start shutting down. And the first thing that shuts down is a high, energy part of that plant, and that's the flower, and that's the first thing to go.
Is it a rule of thumb? I guess there's always a rule of thumb, but does it matter if you water in the morning before you go to work or in the afternoon when it comes to like our fall plants?
I would always water in the morning. Listen, it's easier that way. The plant, if it's if it's going to be a hot day, it doesn't have to go through a hot day and maybe be a little dry. You kind of set the plant up for success by having it, like us, well hydrated, at the start of the day, to take on that hot day.
Are there any other plants? Mums seems to be kind of king during the fall. Are there any other plants that don't get enough attention that can be easy to care for, beautiful additions to our front, back porches or our yards during this time of year?
Oh, absolutely. I am so glad you asked me this because I am a big fan of marigold in the fall. And not a lot of growers have them in the fall. There's more and more that offer them now in the fall. But you think of a marigold, they're yellows and oranges, and kind of those rusty browns, which are kind of autumnal color. And in fact, it's an old tradition. I'm surprised that you don't know this. Now, I'm not calling you old, but it's an old Southern tradition that marigolds in the fall are called marimums.
Oh, I didn't know that. So will you grow them from seed, or do you buy them like annuals you would your periwinkles and other things during the year and then plant them in pots and put them places?
You would buy those already growing at the nursery, right? Because you would have to start if you want to start from seed, you start July 4th. So obviously we're way too late for that.
Oops.
but let the growers do it. And in fact, marigolds actually hold their color longer than fall mums. And so that's one of the reasons I like to promote marigolds in the fall of the year.
I know a lot of folks, too, Gary, right now are thinking about getting their bulbs in the ground. I know my mother-in-law and everybody else are all talking about bulbs, bulb swaps, all the things. I think it's great. They're beautiful, but it's one of those things you can go, oops, and you missed out on it. Is it tulips right now we should be planting, or what bulbs should we be planting right now if we're wanting to plant bulbs?
Right now, in fact, if you're buying bulbs now, you could do like Horus, the prize lilies or the naked ladies. Those bulbs, we could plant those now. Tulip and daffodils, that's generally more of an end of October planting for us. But it's great to be kind of thinking about those types of plants that you're going to plant later in the season.
I love that, and it does feel like a Southern tradition, and I know Southern women aren't the only ones who do it, but they take pride in their bulbs, and it becomes this whole community, and then they get to chit-chatting and sort of passing things around, and it's it's the sweetest thing sort of ever. They become like these prized possessions that people enjoy also sort of sharing away. I mean, it doesn't matter what time of year it is, Gary, it feels like our plants and all sort of bring us together. It's something we all enjoy at least looking at, if not growing.
Oh, absolutely. And you want to know something? Sharing pass-along plants to your friends and neighbors and family, it's a wonderful tradition to get started.
Are there any cut flowers that are big in the fall when you talk about sharing or being able to take to Thanksgiving, or is that more of a summer thing?
That's going to be more of a summer thing. Right now, you may be able to keep some zinnias going, as we get later into the season. I mean, zinnias are fantastic in October. It's cooler weather. The zinnias are a great choice. If you can find zinnias in the nurseries now as plants, plant them. You could also go ahead and plant some zinnia seeds and take a chance that you're going to have some nice ones towards the end of October. That could be a good project.
They're predicting that it could be a rough winter. Should we take that into account of things that we're not going to put in a pot that we can bring in?
You want to know something? I grew up in the UP of Michigan. When we talk about rough weather in Mississippi, I wait. I want to see that rough weather before I really start thinking in September about what we're going to do here in the winter months.
Okay, fair enough. At least we probably at least have worse summers than you did in Michigan. Would you give us that?
Yeah, absolutely. But you want to know something? I'll take our summers here because we don't have to shovel snow.
Yes, most years.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I would not survive, and nor would probably my plants. But Gary, you are a survivor of prostate cancer. You've got a wonderful challenge on your shirt. Will you stick with us and tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
All right, we got more with Gary Bachman coming up. Welcome back to Good Things. You don't forget you can watch us on your computer, your mobile device. Just head on over to SuperTalk TV. Don't forget to our SuperTalk Mississippi news team is covering your Mississippi stories. So stay up to date and sign up for our free weekly newsletter. You can do that over at supertalk.fm/newsletter. We're continuing our conversation with my friend Gary Bachman, who is also a prostate cancer survivor, and he's using his story to not only bring awareness but to raise some funds to help with the research. So Gary, I think this is cool. It also gets you out and get you moving. So tell us about the September challenge that people can see on the T-shirt you're wearing over at SuperTalk TV.
Sure, Rebecca. I'm participating in the Prostate Cancer Foundation. This is the second year of the 108-mile challenge of raising money for prostate cancer research and awareness. And 108 miles is kind of a funny number, but it represents that 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer in their lifetime. And, breast cancer gets all the press, and there's not many folks talk about prostate cancer, but in 2023, the National Cancer Institute has reported that breast cancer deaths have numbered 300,000, prostate cancer deaths have numbered 280,000. So comparative-wise, the death rate is very similar, but we don't talk about it.
And that's because sometimes men don't like talking about their business. And I think it's great that you are being willing to sort of share your experience or share as much of it as, as you feel comfortable, but also, encouraging us to talk about it more because I think, that is something that needs to be done. You mentioned, so you are a survivor. Just share a little bit about your story, Gary, of finding out you had it and then the battle to reclaim your health.
Sure. One of the tests that men don't get regularly is a PSA, the prostate antigen, what are the prostate cell antigen, but it measures the health of your prostate, and I kind of look at it as like the check engine light for men. When you see changes in your PSA number, it's time to go get that checked out. And I'm 68. I have been having my PSA checked since I've been 50, and we noticed that I had a tripling of my PSA numbers over 18 months, which was a sign that we had to go check it out. And so I went to my urologist, and we did all the tests, including the digital exam. This is just stuff I've learned to talk about, be very public with, and found out that I needed to have a biopsy, and I had the biopsy, and lo and behold, I was one of the 1 in 8. So.
And when you get that kind of news, I mean, it's devastating. And, the piece to this is I'm so encouraged, Gary, that you knew what to look for and that you were keeping up with your wellness visits or keeping up with your annuals or whatever. Because so many would rather just not know than from the fear of, hearing it. But that's not right. Like, it's with prostate cancer, like breast cancer and so many others, especially colon cancer, if caught early, in the very beginning, you significantly increase your chances of sticking around a whole lot longer and beating the disease. So, knowledge is power, even though if what you hear is scary.
Right. No, and prostate cancer is one of the slower growing cancers. And folks, have told me when I was telling folks about it, well, if you're going to get cancer, that's the one to get. And it's like, well, that's great to talk about it until it's your diagnosis. And then it's like, what the hell is going on here? Sorry about that.
No, we concur. Yeah.
But went ahead and I had some surgery last year. There's other treatment options. There's radiation. There's hormone therapies that can be done. So there's a lot of choices once a man has that diagnosis, and then it's about becoming educated. There's all kinds of resources, books that are out there, and you have time to read and talk to other men and talk to healthcare professionals and look at the options, and then you decide what the best option is for you. There's not one size fits all.
No, not at all.
And it's something that you work with your significant other, because expected to.
You definitely should. And then also, too, again, just making sure that annual visit with your healthcare provider is just so important. And I know a lot of the ladies listening, this would be a great time to be, encouraged just to ask those men in your life that matter to you, when's the last, do you know your PSA? And if they look at you like deer in headlights and say, we got to fix that, especially if you're over, a mature enough age, especially over 50, certainly over, 60, you definitely need to know those. I want to know about this 108 miles, though. That stands for 1 in 8 men will get diagnosed with prostate cancer. Yeah. So it's walking, running, biking. How are you getting in this 108?
It's I don't bike and I don't run, and so it's all walking. And right now I am at 55 miles, and we're 11 days in. So I think I've got this. But I'm raising money and make donations to my prostate, my Prostate Cancer Foundation page, or just Prostate Cancer Foundation can make donations there. They have a board member who's matching dollar for dollar up to the first $125,000 that are pledged. So I mean, that's what's going on. So I'm walking, I'm treadmilling. This is what I'm doing. I mean, it's things I do already.
Which is good for your health and good for your prostate. Yep. I was trying to do the math. Math is hard, but there's 30 days, I think, in September. So if you divide that into 100, or just 100, you're like 3 miles-ish a day. Is that what you're kind of averaging, or are you going more and taking rest days?
Well, that's what you have to do. Right now, I'm over 5 a day.
Okay. You're trucking it.
That's my normal walking around pace.
Well, that's great. You get 2 thumbs up from me for that. But I think it's doable if people even just wanted to do the challenge. If they want to learn more about it, Gary, where do they go? You mentioned your Facebook page.
You can go to my Facebook page, or you can go to the Prostate Cancer Foundation webpage and learn more about the 108-mile challenge.
And then talk to your healthcare provider, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a good friend at another university who his doctor never addressed PSA, and he ended up having stage 4 prostate cancer and surgery, and it was in remission, and then it came back with a vengeance, and he just passed away this year. And so it's important. So here's a very educated person that didn't know this. And it's one of these things, like you said, that men don't talk about getting up in their business. So.
And you don't have to get everybody up in their business, but you need at least have some, like, not everybody's called to share it all like sometimes we are, Gary, that just feel comfortable, but hopefully you can be the voice of reason for someone who has put off that, or maybe has had the nagging wife and it's finally like, here's your burning bush, you need to go and do it, and have that seen about, because, information is key, and putting your head, like I mentioned, in the sand isn't going to get away. And you would feel, I would imagine it would feel worse to get a diagnosis that could have been prevented had you just done the things you were told to do.
Oh my gosh!
Years before.
The PSA test is just a blood test,
right?
And then you just watch the numbers. And like I said, I consider it like the check engine light for men. You do not ignore that check engine light.
Did you go to your urologist for that, or did your primary care set you up? I'm just curious for those who may listen and go, who do I call?
It was my primary care on my yearly physical with the blood work. Like I said, we've been doing my PSA since I was 50 for almost 20 years now, and then we saw the acceleration of the increases, and that's what initiated the whole biopsies and all that,
and probably and definitely saved your life and put you here many more years to talk about the things you love, which is your gardening, your planting, your community, and cooking, and all the things.
Well, hopefully, now that I'm retired, I'm having way more fun doing all that stuff too. And I want to be around a long time and still do that. That's for sure.
I do not call what you're doing retirement. You have been staying busy, bud. You may just not be getting a paycheck anymore, but you are far from retired, and I love it. And I appreciate you every time I ask, you jump. So thank you.
It's not a problem. It's my pleasure. Anytime, I'll answer the call.
All righty, you guys stick with us. We got more good things for you coming up.